Picture this, it's 1930. America is in the grip of the Great Depression, and wallets are as thin as the slices of bread on the table. Kind of what we're going through now. But American ingenuity is about to cook up a storm with an unassuming hero, the meatloaf. This dish isn't some fancy culinary invention. It's the brainchild of necessity and thrift. Families were stretching their pennies, just like they are now. And meatloaf became the go-to recipe for making the most out of less expensive cuts of meat, often ground up and mixed with fillers, like breadcrumbs or oatmeal to bulk it up. But here's where it gets interesting. Meatloaf really wasn't born in the 1930s, although it was popular then. Nope, it's been around since Roman times. Believe it or not, there's even a recipe for it in the oldest surviving Roman cookbook ever to be found. But it was in the 1930s where the meatloaf really found its groove in America. With the invention of commercial meat grinders, making ground meats became a breeze. And then the magic piece de la resistance was born, the ketchup. This sweet and tangy topping was the cherry on top. It transformed the meatloaf from a bland necessity to a family favorite. Fast forward to today, meatloaf might become your new bestie. But it really does still hold a place in our hearts as one of those yummy comfort foods. And why is that? Because it's versatile, it's economical, and it's really easy to make. You can dress it up with glazes or spices to your choosing. You can even stuff it with cheese or a hard-boiled egg. But at its core, it's really a reminder of our humble beginnings and our not so distant past. And it's really a testament for our ability to make something really delicious out of a lot of simple ingredients. So today, let's make some meatloaf. It's lunch with Lisa. Welcome to my Decades series, where I bring you quick and easy healthy meals from the decades. And we're working our way through the decades, and now we're into the 30s. Meatloaf, of course, was a staple, going through some tough times, just like we are now. So why don't you dust off your baking supplies and let's get started on some meatloaf. For this recipe, you're gonna need 1 onion, diced really fine, 1 to 2 celery ribs, also diced fine, 1 carrot, diced fine, 1 tablespoon of garlic minced, about 3 to 4 cloves. I like to use this mincer that I found on Amazon. I'll leave the link to this down below. It is the best mincer I've ever found. I love it so much. You'll probably get a kick out of using it too. You're gonna need salt and pepper, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2/3 cup of ketchup, 1 pound of lean ground beef, half a pound of ground pork, half a cup of breadcrumbs, 2 eggs, and 1/3 cup of parsley minced, if you have it. You're going to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Saute your first 4 ingredients in your fat of choice, your onion, your celery, your carrots, and your garlic, for about 3 minutes until your onions are transparent. Then add in your salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce, and ketchup. Mix this well and remove it from your heat and allow it to cool down. Then in a large bowl, combine your beef and pork and mix it well. I used some gloves for this so I didn't get it under my fingernails. Add in your remaining ingredients along with your vegetable mixture and combine it well. Form this into a loaf and place it in your loaf pan or onto a cooking sheet. Mine was really loose, and what I learned from this was that I needed to really pack it down a lot harder into my loaf pan, because when I made this, it was really loose coming out. So if you feel like your mixture is too loose, you could add some more breadcrumbs to bulk it up, add some oats if you want to. Oh, that'd be so good. Add some cheese, and then just pack it down a little bit firmer than I did. And this is really optional. In the 1930s, they usually fancied up their meatloaf by stuffing it with either hard-boiled eggs or pickles. So what you want to do is put down a layer of meat on the bottom, put your hard-boiled eggs in or your pickles, and then put your meat on top of that. It'd be kind of fun. My son said no. They did this to add a little bit more flavor, but this recipe doesn't need it. This recipe is super flavorful all on its own. Form a shallow trough in the top of the loaf and fill it with about 1/3 cup of your ketchup. Bake this at 350 degrees for 1 hour. You might want to put this on a sheet pan because mine did start dripping. So protect the bottom of your oven by, you can either put some like foil down there to catch it if you want to, on a rack, of course, and you can put the whole thing on a sheet pan. This serves 6 easily delicious, huge, hearty servings, and they come out to be 311 calories per serving at 25 grams of protein, about 13 grams of carbs, and about 18 grams of fat. A lot of fat in this dish, but it leaves you feeling full and satisfied. I had to heat some up because I had it in the fridge, but this is so good. But it needs something. It needs something fresh and kind of vinegary, right? So a good thing to pair this with is a nice pickle relish. So the day before you make your meatloaf, make this relish to go with it. Or you can make some mashed potatoes. But this relish is really crisp and clean, and it doesn't add too many calories to your plate. For the southern cucumber relish, you're gonna need 2 large cucumbers, 1 red onion, 1 cup of white vinegar, 3/4 cup of sugar, 3/4 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of hot red pepper flakes, 1/4 teaspoon of dried basil, and half a teaspoon of peppercorns. You can use a mandolin to slice your cucumbers and onion, or you can use this KitchenAid slicer. So I just stick this right onto my machine, turn my machine on, make sure the slicer attachment is inside, and then I just run my veggies through it and it slices them so easy. I love this thing. I'll leave a link to it down below. It's easy to clean up too, so don't worry about that. Now I have this huge half gallon, is this a half gallon? Hey Siri, how many pints in a gallon? I'm gonna answer. Thanks a lot. So this is a quart jar, and I just shoved everything in here. So you could do this or 2 smaller mason jars that hold 4 cups each, right? No. They're like, what the hell, 6, 8? This is 8 cups. So this is a half, shit. So this is a half of a gallon jar. So you could use 2 mason jars for this half gallon one, 2 quart jars. So it makes a lot of relish. I just shoved all my cucumbers and onions down inside. Then in a saucepan, you're gonna heat all the other ingredients, stirring until the sugar's totally melted. This doesn't take long at all. It doesn't need to get too hot. Let it cool for about 10 minutes so it's not piping hot, because you don't want to cook your cucumbers. You want them to stay nice and crispy. You're gonna pour this over your cucumbers and onion. Cover and refrigerate this about 1 day before eating, and it lasts about a week in your fridge. And it's really delicious. This is probably a little over a week old, but it gives such a nice little vinegary taste that kind of cuts through like the fat in the meatloaf. So it's like this lovely little crunch, and it's just a nice little side. Yeah, still good after a week. A little bit spicy. It's probably starting to ferment. I have tried many meatloaf recipes over the year, trying to make it super healthy or whatever. This one, it's just a little high in fat, but you could cut that by maybe using all beef instead of the pork, but the pork just adds a richness to it. This is like the best meatloaf I've ever had. So definitely try out this recipe. Let me know what you think, and stick around because the next recipe is a dessert that pairs really well with this one. So I'll see you in my next 1930s video. It's lunch with Lisa. 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire. I know it's not Worcestershire, it's Worcestershire.